unanswered prayers is what got me through the struggle, especially when my mama got killed by my own brother. Then my daddy died, and my old lady left me. My soul grew so dark, didn't think God could even help me. I felt cursed, everybody I love leave or die on me. Don't talk about trust, can't even piss without the fire on me. Nigga cried so much that I ain't got no tears left. Blood and then 15, and got 72 left. So I've been getting geek, nigga. Yeah, I've been getting geek, blood. Niggas staying up for weeks, blood. I swear I hate to go to sleep, bruh.
Man, y'all know what the fuck it is already. It is the Live Smell Better podcast, presented to you by Black Crown Media and hosted by me, your boy, Zone 1 Red, you heard me? This right here is where the sweeter the scent, the bigger the lie. And listen, we got a big motherfucking lie for y'all today, bro. I'm talking about this episode right here. Y'all saw the title. This is gonna make some people hate on you, boy, but I'm ready. I said I'm here for the shit, shawty. I'm here for the shit, shawty. Listen, let's dive right into it, man. The episode today is entitled Black Religious People in America Suffer from Stockholm Syndrome. Oh my God. I understand that people are gonna be sending me hate mail. People are gonna be lining up outside of my business, outside of my studio. People are gonna be saying, oh, I can't stand that motherfucker Zone 1 Red, because nobody wants to hear the truth, especially when the truth fractures your tender sensibilities, right? But we're gonna dive into it. And how we dive into it is we start from the beginning. Let's start from the beginning. And the beginning starts at the start, right? Back in 400 some odd years ago, when we were invited over here, roughly I might add, when the slaves were brought over. Let's talk about that. So among that group of slaves that were brought over here, that group consisted of people from the Senegambia area, Central Africa, and also the other coastal regions of Africa. Now, in those coastal regions, you had places like the Slave Coast, you had the Gold Coast with Togo, Benin, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone. You had in the Senegambia area, you had Senegal, Gambia, you had Guinea-Bissau and Mali, and of course you had in West Central Africa, it's now modern day Angola, the Congo, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, right? Now, in order for those people to get over here, they had to be captured. And how they got captured may surprise some of y'all, but it won't surprise a lot of y'all, because we got a lot of 6ix9ines. Even back then, a lot of snitches, a lot of bitch ass motherfucking niggas, a lot of traitors, a lot of backstabbers, a lot of, hey, what you got, shawty? You got something for these folk? A lot of sell you for the dollar type motherfuckers, the set up chicks, the kick door boys. We had all that shit back then too. This shit ain't new. You niggas thought you was creating something? You thought you was inventing something? Nah, man, we been slimy. We been treacherous. We been deceitful and dirty to one another. This shit ain't new. Stop romanticizing this shit like it's just some shit we created. We ain't that fucking smart. And this episode gonna prove just how not smart we are, right? You had people going to the affluent African people, the royalty, the Mies, the Mies of the time, and they were either paying for these people that they wound up enslaving, they were bartering goods, services, other people for these people they wound up enslaving, or they captured them in conflicts. Maybe they go over there and try to stir up some bullshit, and in the midst of the bullshit, go ahead and kidnap a couple people, throw them on some boats, and boom, now they got their slave stop, right? Now comes the mission of getting them from those places in Africa to their final destination, hence the Middle Passage. The Middle Passage, where they had to come across these vast expanses of water in order to get them over to their respective destinations. Now here's the trip out part. Here's the part that y'all gonna just probably vomit in your mouths over. We all have heard the stories about how brutal it was. We all have heard the story about how horrific and deadly it was coming over. But here's the thing you probably didn't hear. Millions and millions and millions of slaves were captured, kidnapped, sold, traded for, or bartered for, right? A lot of them went over to Brazil and the Caribbean, right? But only about 388,000 of millions of slaves made it to the shores of North America. That's only 3.6 to 4% of the millions of slaves that were captured originally. Think about how many died at sea, because all the other millions didn't just go to Brazil and to the Caribbean. A lot of them died at sea. A lot of them just didn't make it. Some of them couldn't make it, but a lot of them didn't make it. We're going to put a pin in that and we're going to talk about it, right? Now, that still doesn't tell the whole story of how Black Americans, Black religious Americans, or Black people, Black religious people in America suffer from Stockholm Syndrome. That doesn't tell that story. So let's delve a little bit deeper into this. Now let's talk about the predominant religion in America. That's Christianity, right? And if somebody wants to say Islam has a lot of traction, but it's not predominant. Islam is about 1,400 years old, started around the 17th century. CE if you're secular, AD if you're religious or non-secular, right? CE means common area, AD means after death. Obviously BC is before Christ, and BCE means before the common area. So everybody can be up on their acronyms. Christianity started in the 1st century, right? Because you have to remember there's two halves of Christianity. We're going to get into that, right? We're going to get into that. But you have to understand, I need to tell you the story so you can understand the significance and understand why the title is what it is, all right? Now that you know that Islam is a younger ideology in terms of worldwide or global recognition than Christianity. Christianity is about 2,000 years old, whereas Islam is about 1,400 years old to date. So there's about a 600 year disparity between the two. Now, that's going to be important. We'll come back to that. Let's talk about Christianity. Christianity touts, according to the practitioners of Christianity, the believers, those of that faith, tout the prophecy and foreshadowing in the Old Testament and the actual life and experiences in the New Testament of its main protagonist, or of its protagonist, and that is Jesus Christ. Right? That's what the Bible is supposed to be about. The Bible is supposed to be about, or not supposed to be. I mean, let me take that because that's the wrong word. The Bible is about Jesus Christ. The first part of it is the foreshadowing, the prophecy, the poems, the songs, all the rhetoric, the appeals to God, Jehovah, Yahweh, Allah, whatever you want to assign, whatever moniker you want to assign to the deity. Appealing from the people for a savior, right? That's what the Old Testament is about. And then along comes the miraculous conception, the Virgin Mary, who has never had intercourse with a man, even though she was married to Joseph, finds herself great with child. So she is apparently impregnated on the whim of the Most High with Jesus Christ, and she gives birth in a barn. Y'all know the story, y'all know the holiday, right? That is what the Bible is about. Now, it's important that we tell that part of the story too, because you can't dissect anything without first having the thing there to dissect. You need the whole body before you start picking pieces from it, right? Now, let's talk about why that's important. Because Jesus Christ from the Bible has zero, none, nada, non-existent historical data that he ever walked the face of the earth. Provable data, concrete data. Now, you can go back and find proof of lots of other people who lived. Now, here's where it gets tricky and where it gets ingenious. This is where it gets tricky and ingenious, because one of the anecdotes, one of the funny little anecdotes of Christianity is when people run out of arguments against sound opposers of the religion, they'll say that the biggest lie the biggest lie the devil ever told is to convince people he doesn't exist. Which is if you say the devil doesn't exist, you're saying God doesn't exist. And by default, you're saying Jesus doesn't exist, as he is a member of the Holy Trinity. You know, God, Jesus, and the Holy Ghost. So, I'm very up on my religious history and doctrine. So try me at your own will. Try me at your own will, right? Because I know what I'm talking about. Now, all of these things are important to say. The reason why this part that I'm going to tell you about Jesus not having any provable data that he ever existed is ingenious is because, although I mentioned that there are plenty of other people who it could be proven that they existed, is because those people were either affluent, they were nobles, or they were royalty. And at the time that Jesus lived, poor people, known as peasants, didn't really have access to means to document their existence on a grand scale. So the average peasant would have no means to document that they were even here. They would, even if they cared about that sort of thing, they just didn't have the money to do what it took to preserve a body or to get a headstone or anything like that. That's not where their cares. And according to the life that Jesus would have led, that he was chronicled to have led, he would have certainly not cared about those things, because he was a man of meager means. As earthly possessions held no value for him, he was more on an inferior plane, right? That's the genius of it, that you can't prove he existed because the tales you tell about him would say that he would never even try to prove he existed. Think about the diabolicalness of that, but we're going to come back to that. We're going to come back, and I'm going to tell you why it's diabolical. I know some of y'all fuming right now, probably done already turned off the broadcast because you cannot stand that I'm saying this stuff. But if you cared about this, and I'm going to tell you this at the top of the show, if what you believe in, what you stand for, what you claim is legit cannot stand up to criticism, then you are believing some bullshit, right? I don't give a fuck how loudly somebody proclaims that I'm not me. I know I'm me. I know who I am. I know what I represent. I know what I stand for. I'm not going to run off in disgust or frustration or anger because some idiot is claiming I'm not who I am, when I have every ability to prove that I am, especially if they welcome a dialogue about me not being who I say I am, right? I welcome the dialogue from you. So don't get mad. Don't turn off the screen. Don't start cussing and talking about, oh, he don't know what he's talking about. He going to hell, this, that, and the other. Hear me out and let's find out. Right? Give me an opportunity to be wrong as you think I am, as I will give you an opportunity to be as right as you think you are. All right? Now, let's continue. We'll get back to why that's diabolical here in a second. Now, as you talk about wealthy people like pharaohs and archbishops and higher ups in the clergy, people who were politicians and nobility, people like that, of course, they have documentation that they lived, that they walked the earth, that they did things, right? Too many places. How historians and religious scholars claim that Jesus lives is a couple of excerpts from a couple of papers and publications from people who it was easily proven that they existed in the same time, which is crazy, right? Insane. But easily to prove that these people existed, but the only way that it is proved that Jesus existed is because they wrote things about him. So let's just play devil's advocate. It's kind of an oxymoron to use that turn of phrase, but let's play devil's advocate and say that Jesus existed, right? Let's just say that there's documentation based on these few articles, these few publications by these clearly evidenced other people who actually exist. They wrote about Jesus and his disciples and some of his exploits, and that he lived and that he died, and this is who killed him, and this is when he died. Let's say, okay, boom, that's proof enough that he lived as a man on earth. There is zero proof that any acts, any miracles were performed. There's zero proof that any sicknesses were cured. There's zero proof that any other of the amazing things that the Bible chronicles ever happened. No burning bush, no man being regurgitated from a well, no people walking through fire, none of these things. No Lazarus coming back from the dead. None of these things are documented anywhere, in any way, shape, form, or fashion. You just have to have faith. You just got to believe it. Like your kids just got to believe in Santa Claus. They just got to believe in the Easter Bunny. They just got to believe in the Tooth Fairy. You just got to believe this happened, right? Oh, I'm getting mad now. This is some bullshit. You just blasphemy, Zone 1. Blasphemy. It's blasphemy because I'm not ready to accept the fairy tale. Let's continue. And we're going to talk about how it's a fairy tale, right? Only if you're brave enough to face the truth about what you've been told and lied to about. That's only continue if you're willing to do that. If you're willing to live in your delusion, then turn me off. Turn me off, right? Now, for the brave, let's continue, shall we? We're going to put a pin in a couple things. We're going to come back to them. Trust. We coming back, baby. We coming back to them. All right. Now, let's talk about why this is a delusion and why you have been tricked and why, even though we have agreed, myself included, to conclude that Jesus as a man walked this earth, that Jesus as a man existed, that Jesus as a man lived. And let's say he lived the life that the Bible claims as it relates to not caring about possessions, earthly values, that he was an honest and an earnest, hardworking, caring, selfless, pious, and philanthropic individual. Let's say he traveled and built things for people because he was a carpenter by trade. Didn't charge them anything if they couldn't pay. If they could pay, didn't charge them much. And let's say he did as much as he can to try to help people and try to mend their broken bones, by, putting bandages on them and splints, by trying to heal people, by gathering herbs and spices or whatever the medical remedies of the time were. Let's say he did all of that stuff. Where is it that says outside of the Bible, even in any publication, because we use the same publications to prove he existed, where in the publications does it say he rose somebody from the dead? Where in the publications does it say that he turned water to wine? That he turned, multiplied fish and loaves of bread? Where in the publications does it say any of that? It doesn't. Anywhere. You just have to believe it. You just gotta have faith. As they say, the size of a mustard seed can move a mountain. They got all kinds of wonderful colloquialisms, all kinds of cool ass sayings, all kinds of shit that make you want to rah, rah, rah. I can gather up 40 guys who have never been a part of a team. Give me 2 weeks with them running some plays and teaching them how to do huddles and scrimmages and do some calisthenics, and I will have them face anybody in their age group on the football field, and we will win because I'm a motherfucking motivator. I'm a great speaker. I'm a great, bringer outer of whatever I desire. And so are the architects of a lot of religions. So are the writers of a lot of Bibles. You know, it took the Bible a period of thousands of years to be written. If you didn't know that, dozens of writers, probably hundreds. If you didn't know that, if you didn't know, right? It ain't like it's just some shit that happened and then we wrote it down. No, it had to evolve. It changed. Books got added, books got omitted. Some got outright altered altogether. Now, how if it's the truth, we get to take it out? How if it's the gospel, we get to change it? How if it's the real deal? Well, we get to decide who can see it and who can't. Get the fuck out of here. Are you kidding me with this? Are you guys that fucking stupid? Are you that blinded? Okay, all right, I see. I still don't have you. Let's move on. Now let's introduce let's introduce Stockholm Syndrome. In 1973, a man went into an establishment called Credit Banken. Well, we down south would say credit banking. And he robbed it. And while he was in there robbing it, 4 employees, he kidnapped. Over the course of 131 hours. Yeah, let that sink in. Over the course of 131 hours. Yeah, that's a little under 6 days. Yeah. Now, I want you to think about this. In that whole time, he was good to his captives. He listened to his captives, and he wound up winning his captives over to the point where when they were finally released, because the police did overcome him, they did get him, not a single one cooperated with the authorities. They all refused to testify against him, all refused to give witness reports, and went so far as to collectively raise money for his defense. Yeah, they did that. Now, initially, it wasn't called Stockholm Syndrome. It was named after the square where the incident happened. However, the experts behind the methodology of it decided to forward that on to the FBI and other think tanks when it came to trying to profile potential or prospective criminals, and they renamed it Stockholm Syndrome because it happened in or near Stockholm. Now, a year after that incident, a newspaper heiress by the name of Patty Hearst was kidnapped, and she was so indoctrined by her captors that not only did she empathize with them and start to believe what they believe, she also started to commit crimes in the name of the group that they kidnapped her and committed other crimes under. She was a victim of Stockholm Syndrome. Now, Stockholm Syndrome of itself is not necessarily noted as a mental defect or disease. There's another diabolical genius stroke, and I'm gonna tell you why it's not a little bit later on, right? Because that's super duper important. However, Stockholm Syndrome is a coping mechanism used by captives of people who's either kidnapped them or taken them hostage, to the point where they empathize with their captors and start to believe that they are extensions of them. They believe what they believe. They think what they think. They stand for what they stand for. They in turn become shadows of their captors, right? That's very important. That's very important. Now let's go back to something we put up in earlier. Remember I told you we were going to go back to the original people who came from Africa, who came from the the coastal areas, who came from Senegambia, who came from the Congo Republic, all of those places. This is why this is important. 400 years ago or so, around the time that African Americans were invited to the Americas, from Africa to the Americas, right? You had the Senegambians who practiced, although they did recognize a creator, God-like deity, it was by no means the same God that Christianity recommends. But a lot of religions have a similar type deity. So we're not going to spend too much time on that because that's about, it's a singular God type deity, right? They also worship animals. They also worship things, right? You know, little statues and little figures and things like that. Animalistic ritualism type worship. Now, if we go deeper, the people from the Congo and the Republic of Congo, they had already started to adopt a European ideal of Catholicism, which is an extension of Christianity at its root, right? But that was only in the main place where the Europeans had come and invaded. Africa's a huge, huge continent. So in that particular portion of the Congo, and not even the entire Congo, just in that particular portion, they had adopted Catholicism. But the Europeans had also adopted a lot of the aspects of the original Congo religion, because if they didn't, the people would have continued to rebel against them. So along with the Catholicism, they had to incorporate ritualism, animalistic ritualism, and they also had to adopt meditation, which is something that does not happen in Christianity. Now you call it prayer, but meditation and prayer are not the same. If you ascribe to any type of ideology where you meditate, it's quiet. Meditation is something between you and your maker, you and your creator, you and your deity, you and your God. That's why most religions, right? Most other religions don't run around asking people, do they believe their religion? Because it's supposed to be something sacred. If you believe what they believe, you will behave the way they behave. You will act the way they act. You will talk the way they talk, walk the way they talk, dress the way they dress, live the way they live. They will know who you are about how you live your life. Christians feel perfectly okay what you believe in. You a Christian? Knocking on your door and shit, Jehovah's Witnesses. Riding up in your neighborhood on bicycles, Seventh-day Adventists. These motherfuckers Mormons and shit. These motherfuckers is crazy. Your own sacred belief that they teach you and preach to you is supposed to be sacred ain't even sacred, because you're supposed to tell them. If you don't tell them, you ain't in our gang. What the fuck? So the Congo Catholic Christians were practicing Christianity or Catholicism intermingled with their own local belief system, which included animalistic ritualism and meditation. Now, all the rest of it, like the coastal, the Gold Coast and the Slave Coast, they still practice all the stuff that they practice. So now you got boats and boats and boats and boats and boats full of these people, with a small percentage of them among the people who practice everything else they practice, who practice a version of your Christianity. Not even Christianity in the way you know it, slave captors, slave owners. They practice a version of it. But the one thing that they all do is they all have all their different languages. And it's way more of them than it is of you. Way more of them than it is of you. So you got your hands full. You got your hands full. You got to try to thin this herd. You got to try to get the docile ones, more of them than the rebellious ones. You got a lot of shit you got to do, man. You got to try to make this shit work, Because you got a master plan. Remember those diabolical genius strokes I told you about? Yeah, we're going to come back on them. Because at the end of the day, we don't see we being the slaves. We weren't slaves before we were slaves, most of us. Some of us were slaves. That's why we got bought, because we were already possessions of Africans. Now we possessions of the Europeans, the Caucasoids, right? The Southern boys, right? But a lot of us were not slaves. We were just people who got caught up in a conflict. We became slaves, right? We were either going to be slaves in Africa or we were going to be slaves somewhere else. So we just kind of accepted the fate. But the thing about being a slave in Africa is you can still practice your religion the way you want to. You can still have your identity. You just a slave. The white man had a plan. Oh, Lord. They had a plan. They had a plan for our ass. And we're going to get to it now. Part of that plan, I'm going to tell you a little bit right now. Part of that plan was mental, psychological, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual indoctrination. Oh, y'all motherfuckers don't want to hear that. Yeah, but the strong of us, the strong-minded of us, we ain't so easily fooled. But hey, hang on. You still have a chance to be strong. You still got a chance to get in the gym, baby. You still got a chance to work the muscles out, baby. It ain't over for you yet. You got breath in your lungs. It ain't over for you yet. It ain't over for you yet, boy. You still got a chance. All right. Now, let's move on to the next little section of this plan. In order to get these motherfuckers where we want these motherfuckers, we got to thin this herd to make it more manageable. And we got to get all the motherfucking fighters out and keep all the motherfucking 6'9s in. We got to keep the 6'9s in this bitch, right? Now, before we go on with that little bit, I'm going to tell you a little story. This story is called The Shit Cake. I want you to open up your brains. It's going to be hard for some of y'all because you're so fucked up. You've been taught so much bullshit. You don't know how to listen. You don't know how to cognitively reason. You don't know how to take something that's common sense and equate it to something else that's common sense because you've been living in a fantasy world your entire existence. So I'm going to ask you to do something that's tough for you to do. I want you to listen. I don't want you to just hear me. I want you to listen. I don't want you to talk while I'm talking. I want you to listen. And I don't want you to say a motherfucking thing, form a motherfucking opinion until I'm motherfucking finished. All I want for you to do is listen. And if you were listening, you would have heard what I said instead of saying, "What'd he say, girl? He always talking that shit," because you doing way more motherfucking talking than you doing listening. All right? All right. It's about 15 or 20 people hanging out together. Genders are mixed, some men, some women. They just laughing, they just talking, they just having a good old time. And they're all out at a local bar. Everybody's feeling comfortable, getting their drink on. If you smoke a little bit, getting your smoke on. If you like to party, you like to party, you like to party. Whatever they're doing it. And they're together and they're vibing. And out of the motherfucking blue, the lights come up, the music turns down, and all the staff just disappears. Where's the staff go? The DJ just exited, went to his car and left. The bartender closed out all the tabs, left checks on the table, dipped. The bus boys and girls, they washing their hands, putting on their jackets, and they leaving. And it's just this group of 20 people. Even the bouncers left. The only person left that works there is the manager and this group of 20 people. And 3 or 4 of the group members turn around and say, "Hey guys, We bought out the club for the rest of the night. It's just us. And so everybody else was like, oh, okay, cool. Drink as much as you like. You know, light up if you got them. Hey, it's our night tonight. We just celebrating. And then one of the other people, you know, say, hey, man, what we celebrating? Man, one of the 3 or 4 people that turned around and started talking said, we're celebrating a new beginning. I tell you, we celebrating a new era. They're like, oh, that's cool. What new era we celebrating? Well, we're going to tell you about it. But first, before we tell you about it, we have something that we need you all to do. And if you do this, you can come to this new era with us. If you do it willingly. All right? And if not, then we'll just have a different discussion. They're like, oh, okay, well, what we got to do? Don't worry, we'll show you. So one woman and 2 guys turn around with their backs facing the people who are looking, right? And the 2 guys drop their pants and the woman hikes up her skirt and all 3 of them slip down their underpants and they bend over and they take a huge dump in their own hands. And they each turn around without even wiping their nasty asses. Didn't even wipe their nasty motherfucking asses. And they pull up their little shit and she drops her skirt and they wrestle their pants and underwear up around their waist. And then they got a pile of shit in their hand. Each one of them have a pile of shit in their left hand. And each one of them look at each other and smile. And they look at the crowd, the 17 other people, and smile. And they go to each one of them like, here, take a bite. Take a bite? What the fuck? Of course they get responses like that. They walk back to their spot like they expected that. And they say, okay. Nobody wants to take a bite, huh? All right, no problem. Well, we said if you willingly did what we asked you to do, we'd be able to go to a new era. But what we didn't tell you is that we're going to go to the new era whether you willingly do it or not. Next thing you know, the manager opens the door and outside is 6 SUVs, black tinted windows, big black SUVs, just tinted windows, and the lights come on, pow, blinding everybody. And some of the people are like, oh, hell no, this is some bullshit. It's the black people. They're like, oh, fuck this shit. It's some black, it's bullshit. And then they realize, damn, these motherfuckers ain't gonna let us go. Cause these people that had shit in their left hand all of a sudden got guns in their right hand. They like, nah, you ain't going nowhere. Y'all just go ahead, nowhere but in them SUVs. Y'all go and get in there. So they get in the SUVs. When they get in the SUVs, the driver of each one takes them and they zip tie their hands, and then they tell them to turn around and they zip tie their hands to their feet. So they're in like a little ball, trussed up like pigs. And then the drivers, they these big buff guys. They bigger than me. They just grab them, put them in the little car. 6 SUVs, 17 people, plenty of room. Now they're driving. They driving for what seems like 2-3 hours. Very uncomfortable, that position. They get there to their destination, and as these people get roughly thrown out of the SUVs onto the ground, still trussed up, tightly bound with these zip ties, they look around and start to notice, man, they are far from the city, far from the club they were at. It's this huge warehouse and nothing else around as far as the eye can see in any direction. One road in, one road out. And in the far off distance from where they came, looks like there's a iron fence, tall iron fence with barbed wire at the top. And there's a body of water on this side. And there's a bank of trees, looks like dense forest on this side. And in the back, there's a huge, huge extension of what looks like a mountain, but I can't see no people. I can't see no houses. Just this big ass warehouse. So a bunch of carts get brought out. You ever been to Home Depot or Lowe's and they got those big carts for when you want to get big things, appliances and stuff, and they start loading these people, but these mechanical, you like touch a button and they lower and they raise. So they lower them all the way down like they were almost flat. And the big guy comes over and tosses people on 3 apiece. And then they raise them up and they just push them into the warehouse. Then they dump them off on the floor. And as they're doing that, they sit them down because they undid the zip ties together, but they still kept them tied up. Then they put a gun to their head, each one of them, undid the zip tie, tied their ankles to each chair, undid the zip tie from back here, and then they zip tied them here, and then connected them together. So they're sitting like this in a chair with their ankles to the chair, and this is to their ankles, so they don't have a lot of mobility. They do that to all 17 of them, and then those people come back in with the shit in their hand, and they say, now take a bite. And of course, they ain't taking no bite of that shit. So they say, okay, you don't want to take a bite of the shit? A whole bunch of guys come in, and they got machine guns, fully automatic, and they circle them. And they untie one of the guys, and they throw a box cutter in, and they say, untie everybody else, cut their zip ties loose. And they say, nobody wants to come take a bite of this shit? This is good for you. This is the best thing you ever had. You don't want to take a bite of this? And they say, no. Okay, cool. Then y'all fight. And they made them fight. And they kept asking them to eat the shit. They wouldn't eat the shit. Okay, well, y'all fuck. And you don't fuck your girlfriend or your wife. You don't fuck your boyfriend or your husband. You fuck him. You fuck her. And then they asked them to eat the shit, and they wouldn't eat the shit. All right. Well, I tell you what. You two torture him. And they still asked me to eat the shit. They wouldn't eat the shit. All right. You three cut his ear off. They won't eat the shit. All right. You five kill her. And if you don't do it, then one of us will do it. Now the whole time they not eating this shit and they making them do all this stuff to them, and if they wouldn't do it to each other, their captors would do it to them. They started to notice that this is a huge warehouse. This is a huge fucking warehouse. And they were in one of what looked like dozens of rooms. And they started noticing that amongst the sounds of their distress and discomfort, they started hearing sounds from other rooms, which made them realize they weren't the only group being presented this choice. They were there for days, weeks, months. And every day, more and more rooms were being filled. More and more voices were being heard. And every day they were being presented this option. Until one day, about a weekend, the captain said, you know what? These motherfuckers are not gonna eat this shit. And the more we kill them, the less our plan has a chance to work. So why don't we get some butter, some salt, some cream, some vanilla extract, some milk, and some eggs, and mix this shit into a cake. Oh, those cakes were made by gourmet bakers. Those cakes were wonderfully smelling and beautifully presented. Those people, watch them people take that shit from their ass, throw it in that batter, mix it in, and produce this beautiful smelling, this wonderful smelling, beautifully presented cake. And they say, nah, eat the cake. Man, I'm not eating that cake. I know shit's in that cake. Now remember, these people been kept there for weeks, months, even years at this point. Some of them have died off. They got killed off. Some of them got beaten to death. Some of them got raped so much they wound up killing themselves, running into a wall, or kept flipping themselves over until they broke their neck because they were tied like this. And some of them just kept saying no. But by the time they said yeah, they were broken and not usable. So they died. Then about a year into it, they said, man, these folks are not gonna eat this cake because they are seeing us shit in it. Now this is where the genius and the diabolical comes in. This is how genius and diabolical your captors are. They say, why don't we do this? why don't we divide all of our captives into a room? We're going to use the 3-room system. And that way, all the people who resist us, all the people who try to fight us, and all the people who say no, we can beat them, convince them, or kill them off. We already making them fuck, let's make them have babies. And then they babies, we can raise up the way we want them to be. Right? And as we kill off the old ones, we raise up the babies. And let's have a second room where we shit in the cake batter. Nobody get to see us shit in the cake batter. We know we shitting in the cake batter. All the old people know we shit in the cake batter, but we killed them. And they ain't got a chance to tell the new people because we teaching them. And in the third and final room, let's let them see us making a cake, but they didn't see us shit in the batter. They just see us bringing cake batter in. And then we make the cake. And then we tell them all they got to do is eat it. And if they eat it, they get to go free. So they did that. Over the course of the next 20, 30 years, that's what they did. Killed off all the old people, the strong people, the resistant people, the people who knew better, raised up all the new people, the young people, the dumb people, the people they taught in the way they wanted to mold, and they all ate the cake, anime. They all ate the cake, anime. Because they didn't see the shit being put in the batter. So they ate the cake. Then they let the people go, and their plan was put into place, and things started to happen exactly like they thought. Now, years later, we're talking about a couple centuries later, since they have the complexion for the connection, they will share the details of this story with their own kind, not with ours. One of the descendants of their kind, being internally torn by what his ancestors had done and the plight of the modern day Negro, asked, can you tell me, to one of the descendants of the original architects of the plan, who was still just as diehard as his great granddaddy. He said, what was the significance of getting people to eat the shit? He said, son, it's extremely simple. Eating is a form of ingesting. If you get someone to ingest shit, since people are what they ingest, they start to think shit. And when they think shit, they develop shit habits. And when they develop shit habits, tendencies and practices, people have or start to exhibit shit behavior. And when they have shit behavior, they develop shit reasoning. When reasoning is shit, it morphs into shit communication. Then that turns into shit relationships. The fallout from that is shit offspring or chillins. That bleeds into a shit family structure. And no structure is a beeline to having shit leadership. The absence of effective leadership creates a shit community. Now, no community adhesion equates to shit community productivity, leaving a void that brings them to why we wanted them to eat shit in the first place. And that is, we told them it was the best thing for them, just like we tell them that religion is the best thing for them. We tell them that Jesus Christ is the best thing for them, the very religion that we used to oppress them in the first place. The very religion that we use to ostracize them in the first place. The very religion that we use to tell them they were only 3/5 of a human in the first place. The very religion we use to get them to eat shit in the first place. We tell them that religion is the answer to all the shit, pun intended, in their lives. That we were the catalyst for which the leaders to despair that allowed them to treat, I want you to hear this part, that we were the catalyst in the first place And that gives us the reason to treat them like the shit we tell them that they are. So eating shit was imperative, son, because you are what you eat. Now, only a group of shit-eating fools would believe and commit themselves to anything that their captors, oppressors, and enslavers told them to believe for their own good. You ask why this episode is called Black Religious People in America Suffer from Stockholm Syndrome, is because you are fucking dumb enough to believe that the people who told you you weren't shit, who treated your wife, your kids, your mama, your daddy like shit, who raped you, who beat you, who tortured you, disfigured you, who kidnapped you, who sold you, who traded you, who bought it for you, and whenever they feel like it, killed you. The same people that told you, hey, take this book, don't read it, only memorize the places that we tell you and do what we tell you to do. Believe what we tell you to believe. Fuck what your ancestors believed that had you being royalty and had you thriving for thousands of years, for millennia. Fuck that. Fuck that. Do what we telling you to do. Do the shit that we won't even do. But do it for yourself because it's good for you. Believe the shit that we don't even believe. But believe it for yourself because it's good for you. And don't worry about trying to be good today. Don't worry about trying to get no money today. Don't worry about trying to be healthy and happy today. It's greater later. It'll be okay. There's a paradise awaiting for you in heaven. That's what Jesus did. Jesus didn't worry about that. Be like Jesus and look how he died. You ain't better than Jesus, are you? You ain't better than him, are you? Look how he died. Be like that. Live like that. No, we're not going to do it. No, we're not going to do it. Yeah, we believe in it when it suits us, but you believe in it all the time. All the time. Oh, no, you're not my equal. Oh, no, I can't stand you. I do want to fuck your wife and your daughter and your sister, but no, I can't stand you. Yeah, because that makes a lot of sense, black people. That makes a lot of fucking sense, Latin people. Makes a lot of fucking sense, Asian people. You got over here and forgot who the fuck you were. You allowed these people to train you up the way they wanted you to be. And you, even with all the knowledge and access you have today, you are still too fucking stupid, too blind, too proud, or just too lazy to question things, to look at things and realize they don't make sense. To look at things and say, hey, what, this doesn't fit me. This is not designed for me. It was not intended for me. And it is not something that I can get behind because I am not Patty Hearst. I do not suffer from Stockholm Syndrome, and I will not be told ridiculousness. Oh, I know who I am. I know what my salvation is. I know who my God is. Jesus, I don't care what you say. Jesus delivered me. Jesus is love. And marriage is about Christ. And being faithful is about all this stuff. None of that shit makes sense. And then when you tell someone just how ludicrous it is, instead of them standing firm and finding reason and logic to defend their position, their first response, if they're on the phone with you, is to end the conversation. Their response, if they're in person with you, is to walk away. Their response, if they're in a relationship with you, is to dissolve it. Because surely anything worthwhile ain't worth defending. Surely anything that's legitimate doesn't need to have logic behind it. Surely anything that's valid can just be as fickle for one learned, wizened veteran to interpret one way, and another guy who's been in the same religion, practicing it and preaching it for the same amount of time to interpret it a different way, and for another person in a different way. You could talk to 12, 50-year experienced pastors of the same exact sect of Christianity. We're not even talking about Catholicism, an Episcopal, a freaking Methodist, and a Baptist. Pick 50 Baptists or 50 Methodists and ask different pastors in that religion to quote one particular verse, let them all go off in their different ways, and you're going to have 50 different responses. How can something that's absolute be that interpretive? But nobody wants to acknowledge that it doesn't make any sense. They always want to revert back to, well, you just got to have faith. I go back to my other argument. If that's the case, then Santa Claus is real. The diabolical genius stroke is that Jesus can't be disproven that he existed, even though it can't be proven that he was holy, because of the life of the story that said he lived, which makes it easier to fool a bunch of gullible motherfuckers. The diabolical stroke of getting somebody to eat shit, not literally, but eat shit metaphorically, symbolically, by the same motherfuckers who oppress you, who brought you over, who kidnapped you, who raped you, who pillaged you. You believe what they told you. You believe what they told you, to the point where you're willing to die for it, to the point where you're willing to get mad at other people who don't believe it because they're not as gullible as you. That's diabolical genius, bro. That is evil genius at its finest. I got to give the white man their props for that shit. The other side of why it's diabolical is because the same exact way that most of us, even Christians, can acknowledge that America all the time uses their military might to coerce people to do what they want them to do, even against their own will, to the point where after they've done it for so long, they just accept it. They do the same thing with indoctrination. Listen, the media machine is a real thing. You know, putting information out there is a real thing. The governing, the mass production, that whole psychological warfare is a real thing. And Black Americans and other minorities in this country have had psychological warfare thrust upon them and perpetrated upon them since the second the first toe touched soil. And you motherfuckers are losing. I am not a dumb person. I am not a stupid person. I'm not an unfeeling person. I just have a huge brain atop my shoulders. And there's no amount of sad stories, there's no amount of wonderfully spun tales that's gonna convince me that there's some person sitting in the sky looking down, judging us. There's no way. You're not going to get me to believe somebody regurgitated from a well. Not going to get me to believe one man out of thousands beat a giant with a slingshot. You're not going to get me to believe any of that shit. Do they make great inspirational tales? Absolutely. Are they great motivational speeches? Absolutely. I think what happened is somebody put together a book of tales, and somebody either erroneously or purposely misinterpreted that and created a whole dogma to enslave and indoctrinate an entire nation of people. And it has worked brilliantly. That's why they won't tell you about life outside of Earth, because it would shatter half of y'all's tiny ass brains and imaginations to think that somebody else outside of the planet Earth could possibly exist. Hey! It's been an outstanding episode, man. I love fucking with you dumb motherfuckers because you so dumb and easy to fuck with. This has been your boy, Zone 1 Red in this bitch, signing off for Black Crown Media and the Live Smell Better podcast. Y'all better holler at your motherfucking boy. Yeah!
Serving. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? Bending corners in the 83. Smoking wood with the Mexicans, throwing 3. About to hit the hood, I'm in South Texas with the cowboys and Indians, but I'm a certified coast boy, so I'm blending in.